Let's all thank Daniel, my mother said, lifting her wine glass beneath the chandelier. If it weren't for him, none of this would have happened. 32 people clapped. I was standing by the kitchen island, refilling a tray of mini tarts I'd baked because Mom said, Emily's always been the practical one. The house smelled like new paint and expensive candles. Marble countertops. Custom cabinets. A staircase that curved like something out of a magazine. Daniel stood in the center of the living room with his fiancée, Chloe, one hand resting confidently in his pocket. He smiled like a man who had built something from nothing. You've got to know how to move money, he said, raising his glass. That's the key. Move money. I knew exactly how that money had moved. I'd wired most of it myself. Mom turned toward me and gave a light, almost dismissive laugh. Of course, Emily helped with the paperwork. She's always been good with numbers. Our little bookkeeper. A few guests chuckled politely. Our little bookkeeper. Not co-owner, not partner, not the one who put in $60,000 of her own savings. Just the bookkeeper. I smiled. I'd perfected that smile over the past 2 years. Calm. Supportive. Invisible. And they had no idea that 12 hours before this party, I'd walked into First National Bank and made one quiet adjustment to Riverstone Renovation's corporate account. I didn't move a single dollar. I just changed who could. But before I tell you what happened after tonight, I need to take you back to the beginning, to the afternoon my older brother came home unemployed and I made the most expensive decision of my life. 2 years ago, Daniel was 34 and freshly fired from a mid-sized real estate brokerage in Chicago. He came back to our parents' house in Ohio with 2 suitcases, a story about short-sighted management, and a new idea. House flipping, he told me over coffee at Main Street Cafe. Distressed properties. Quick turnarounds. High margins. He laid out a glossy proposal like he was pitching investors on Shark Tank. We buy undervalued homes. Renovate fast. Sell within 90 days. Conservative projection? 30 to 40% return per property. I listened. I'd been working as a senior accountant for a regional logistics company for 6 years. My job wasn't flashy, but it paid well. I'd built up a savings account of just over $62,000. That money was supposed to be my down payment on a small house of my own. How much capital do you have? I asked. 20, he said confidently. I need 80 to start. You've got 60. He didn't phrase it as a question. Mom had already called me the night before. Emily, your brother just needs one real chance. You know he's always had vision. Family helps family. Family helps family. Daniel leaned forward. We form an LLC. 50-50 ownership. I handle acquisitions and contractors. You handle finances. We'll build something real. A team. I'd never been part of one before. Not with him. Growing up, Daniel was the golden child, charismatic, big dreams, big personality. I was the reliable one. The planner. The one who balanced the checkbook when Dad forgot. I told myself this was our chance to finally be equals. I transferred $60,000 into the new business account 3 days later. That was mistake number 1. The first house was a small ranch on Maple Drive. Peeling paint. Leaky roof. Good bones. Daniel negotiated the purchase. I structured the short-term bridge loan. I tracked contractor invoices, negotiated material discounts, and made sure we didn't overspend on finishes that wouldn't increase resale value. We sold it in 11 weeks. Net profit after expenses, $34,700. Mom hosted a celebratory dinner. I always knew Daniel had a head for business, she told our aunt and uncle. He just needed the right timing. No one asked who structured the financing. No one asked who ran the numbers. I didn't correct her. House number 2 went smoother. Then house 3. By the end of the first year, Riverstone Renovations had bought and sold 7 properties. Total net profit, just under $400,000. I paid myself a modest salary, $2,000 a month. Enough to cover rent and groceries. Daniel paid himself a management fee of $10,000 a month. It's about image, he told me when I questioned the new BMW. Clients need to see success. We didn't have clients. We bought and resold. But I let it go. I told myself growth required trust. About 18 months in, Daniel got engaged to Chloe, the daughter of a well-connected local real estate broker. Mom was thrilled. Finally, she whispered to me one Sunday after church. A girl who matches Daniel's ambition. When Daniel announced they were buying a house on Hillcrest Road, the one with the sweeping driveway and floor-to-ceiling windows, I pulled up our financials. Purchase price, $1.2 million. We don't have that kind of liquidity, I said. We will, he replied. We'll take a distribution. A distribution of what? We have 3 active renovations. That cash is tied up. It's temporary, he said. Relax. Temporary. A week later, I reviewed the ledger and saw a transfer, $250,000 from Riverstone's operating account to Daniel's personal account. I called him immediately. That's company money. The company is ours, he said calmly. 50-50. I'm just taking my half early. It wasn't half. It wasn't even profit. It was working capital, money allocated for labor, materials, and taxes. I started digging deeper. And that's when I found mistake number 2. 6 months earlier, Daniel had filed an amendment to our operating agreement. Buried in year-end documents he'd handed me to sign was a revision stating that any financial decision over $100,000 required only the signature of the managing director. Managing Director, Daniel Carter. I was listed as CFO. On paper, impressive. In authority? Decorative. I had signed the amendment without reading it carefully. I'd trusted him. Which brings us back to tonight. The housewarming party. 32 guests. Champagne. Compliments. Applause. Emily handles the numbers, Mom repeated to a neighbor. Daniel handles the vision. I stood by the kitchen island, smiling, listening to my brother describe strategic growth like he'd built Riverstone alone. Then I excused myself to the bathroom and locked the door. I looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't angry. Anger would have been easier. I felt something colder. Clearer. I had reread the operating agreement the night before. Line by line. Slowly. Daniel had secured decision-making authority over large expenditures. But there was one clause he'd overlooked. Control over corporate banking access, including online credentials, authorized signers, and electronic transfer limits, belonged to the chief financial officer. Me. At 9 o'clock that morning, I sat across from a bank manager and updated the account authorization structure. Daniel still had viewing access. He just no longer had unilateral transfer authority. Any outgoing transfer over $10,000 now required dual approval. Mine included. I didn't move his $250,000. I didn't freeze the account. I simply made sure no more money would move without me. And Daniel had no idea. I unlocked the bathroom door and walked back into the party just as someone asked him what his next move was. He grinned. Expansion, he said. We're just getting started. I picked up a glass of sparkling water and took a sip. So were we. The first sign Daniel noticed something was wrong came 3 days after the housewarming party. I was at my desk at the logistics firm, reconciling freight invoices, when my phone buzzed. Daniel. I let it ring twice before answering. Why is there a hold on the Riverstone transfer? He demanded, skipping hello. What transfer? The 85 grand to Hawthorne Contractors. It's pending authorization. I kept my tone even. Yes. It requires dual approval now. A pause. What are you talking about? I updated the bank authorization structure. Without telling me? It's within my authority as CFO. Silence on the other end. I could practically hear his jaw tightening. That's not how we operate. It is now. He exhaled sharply. Emily, don't start this. We've got 3 active projects. I don't have time for control games. Control games. I swiveled my chair toward the window. Outside, a semi-truck backed into the loading dock. Ordinary. Predictable. Structured. I'm not playing games, I said. I'm protecting cash flow. From what? From being treated like a personal checking account. Another pause. Longer this time. We agreed I could take distributions. After profits are calculated. After taxes are reserved. After liabilities are covered. It's temporary, he snapped again. Temporary. That word again. You moved $250,000, Daniel. It's my house. It's company money. It's our company. Yes, I said calmly. And I'm exercising my half. He didn't yell. That would have been easier to handle. Instead, his voice went cool. Fine. Approve the contractor payment. I will, I said. After I see updated budgets for all 3 properties. You don't trust me? I almost laughed. This isn't about trust. It's about documentation. He hung up without another word. That night, I opened Riverstone's master spreadsheet at my kitchen table. For 2 years, I had tracked every invoice, permit fee, loan interest charge, staging expense, and closing cost. I knew those numbers better than I knew my own grocery budget. I rebuilt projections for our 3 active properties, Maple Ridge, over budget by $18 for 100 Cedar Lane, behind schedule by 5 weeks Willow Court. Contractor dispute pending. Daniel had been authorizing change orders without consulting me. Extra tile upgrades. Higher-end fixtures. Landscaping packages that didn't increase appraised value. Image upgrades. Not investment decisions. By the time I finished recalculating, one truth was clear: if Daniel pulled another 6-figure distribution, Riverstone wouldn't just stall. It would collapse. 2 days later, Mom called. Emily, she began in that measured voice she used when she was about to scold without sounding like it. Your brother says you're making things difficult. I'm making things accountable. He feels blindsided. I felt blindsided when $250,000 disappeared. That's his house, she said quickly. It's an investment in the family's future. Is Riverstone paying the mortgage too? A sharp inhale. You've always been so rigid about money. Because numbers don't care about feelings. Silence. Then she tried a softer approach. Daniel carries a lot of pressure. He's building something big. You handle the details. That's your strength. Our little bookkeeper. I closed my eyes briefly. I'm not a detail, I said. I'm an owner. You don't need recognition, Emily. You've never been that type. No. I'd been the type who made sure the lights stayed on while someone else took the applause. I'm not asking for recognition, I said evenly. I'm asking for structure. Mom sighed like I was exhausting her. Just don't sabotage your brother over pride. Pride. If she only knew. Daniel showed up at my apartment the following Saturday without warning. He paced my living room, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. You embarrassed me at the bank, he said. I updated paperwork. You made it look like I can't manage my own company. It's not your company. It wouldn't exist without me. I let that sit. And it wouldn't exist without my $60,000, I replied. He stopped pacing. That was startup capital. Yes. From me. And you've been paid back. No, I said quietly. I've been paid a salary. He scoffed. You've made steady money. Safe money. You don't take risks. I took a $60,000 risk. That was different. How? He didn't answer. Instead, he shifted tactics. You're scared, he said. That's what this is. You see expansion and it freaks you out. Expansion funded by unstable cash flow freaks me out. He shook his head. You've always needed control. No, I corrected. I've always needed transparency. For a moment, we just stood there. Two adults in a small apartment, separated by numbers neither of us could ignore anymore. Then he said something that landed heavier than I expected. If you don't trust me, maybe you shouldn't be part of this. There it was. The quiet threat. I met his eyes. Maybe I shouldn't. He didn't think I meant it. The following week, I started pulling full financial histories. Not summaries. Everything. Wire confirmations. Contractor contracts. Loan agreements. Internal emails approving change orders. The more I looked, the clearer the pattern became. Daniel wasn't stealing in the obvious sense. He was reallocating. Advancing distributions. Charging personal travel to site visits. Expensing dinners at restaurants 2 states away under client acquisition. Individually, each charge could be defended. Collectively, they told a story. Riverstone wasn't a business to him. It was leverage. And if the market shifted, if a property stalled, if interest rates ticked up, if a buyer backed out, the liability wouldn't land evenly. It would land on whoever had signed the financial oversight. Me. I printed 27 pages of transaction summaries and stacked them neatly in a folder. Then I opened the operating agreement again. There was a clause about fiduciary responsibility. And a clause about breach. And a clause about buyout terms if one partner materially endangered the company. I read each one slowly. Twice. For the first time since we started Riverstone, I stopped thinking like a sister. And started thinking like an owner. Friday afternoon, Daniel texted, "Need you at the Hillcrest property Sunday. Chloe's parents coming by. Want to present expansion plans. Present." I stared at the message. He wanted me there to validate projections. To nod. To smile. To play the bookkeeper. I typed back, "I'll be there." Then I opened my laptop and drafted something new. Not a spreadsheet. Not a budget. A timeline. Every capital contribution I made, every unilateral withdrawal he authorized, every amendment filed, every risk exposure created. 2 years, condensed into 5 pages. Facts. Clean. Clear. Undeniable. Sunday wasn't going to be another applause moment. It was going to be an audit. And Daniel still thought I was just there to handle the numbers. He had no idea I'd already calculated the exit. Hillcrest was Daniel's crown jewel. 4 bedrooms. Open concept kitchen. White oak floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake that wasn't technically private but looked exclusive enough to sell the illusion. When I pulled into the driveway Sunday afternoon, Chloe's silver SUV was already there. So was a black Mercedes I didn't recognize. I sat in my car for a full 10 seconds before stepping out. This wasn't just a property showing. This was positioning. Inside, the house smelled like fresh paint and staged vanilla candles. Soft instrumental music drifted through hidden speakers. Every throw pillow was angled just right. Daniel stood near the kitchen island, animated, confident, glowing. Chloe was beside him in a cream sweater dress, hand resting lightly on his arm like she was already co-owner of something bigger. And across from them Chloe's parents. Her father had the posture of someone used to being listened to. Tailored blazer. Polished shoes. Evaluating eyes. Her mother smiled politely but scanned everything like a silent auditor. Daniel spotted me. There she is, he said brightly. The brains of the operation. I walked in with a calm smile. Hi. Introductions were smooth. Too smooth. Emily handles all the financial structuring, Daniel told Chloe's father. She's conservative. Keeps us grounded. Conservative. Grounded. Words that translated to, she worries. I set my leather folder on the kitchen counter but didn't open it. Not yet. Daniel launched into his pitch. Hillcrest is phase 1. Maple Ridge closes next month. Cedar Lane hits market early summer. Then we scale. He tapped the granite countertop lightly. We're looking at rolling profits into multi-unit developments by Q4. Chloe's father nodded. And capital? We're leveraging current equity. Debt ratio? Daniel hesitated for half a second. Comfortable. That's when Chloe's father looked at me. And your assessment? The room shifted. Daniel gave me a subtle glance, the kind that said, keep it polished. I folded my hands calmly. Our current liquidity is tight but manageable, I said evenly. However, expansion would require either outside investment or reduced distributions. Chloe's mother blinked. Reduced distributions? Daniel laughed lightly. Emily always speaks worst case. It's not worst case, I replied. It's cash flow reality. The air cooled by a degree. Chloe's father stepped closer to the island. What's your current debt-to-equity ratio? Daniel started answering, but I did instead. 72%. Daniel shot me a look. Chloe's father didn't. That's aggressive. It's temporary, Daniel said quickly. It's strategic, I corrected. Chloe's mother tilted her head. Strategic how? I opened my folder. Paper sliding against granite sounded louder than it should have. Over the past 9 months, I began calmly. Riverstone advanced $250,000 in partner distributions before finalizing net profit calculations. Silence. Daniel stiffened. That was a timing decision, he said sharply. It created exposure, I continued. If Maple Ridge underperforms by even 8%, we'll need to inject capital to cover lender covenants. Chloe's father's expression shifted from polite interest to measured concern. Why would you advance distributions without closing performance certainty? Daniel stepped in. Because growth requires confidence. Growth requires liquidity, I replied. The tension snapped into visibility. Chloe squeezed Daniel's arm slightly. Babe, he gently moved her hand away. Emily, he said quietly, controlled. This isn't the time. This is exactly the time. Chloe's father leaned back slightly. I appreciate transparency, he said. Daniel's jaw tightened. We're not unstable, he insisted. No, I said. We're leveraged. There's a difference. Chloe's mother looked at her husband. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he asked the question Daniel didn't want. What protections are in place for minority partners? Daniel laughed lightly again. We're siblings. There's no minority. Chloe's father didn't smile. In business, there always is. I closed the folder gently. Our operating agreement outlines buyout clauses in the event of material risk exposure, I said calmly. Daniel's head snapped toward me. Why are you talking about buyouts? Because we need clarity. Chloe's parents exchanged a glance. And suddenly this wasn't a showcase anymore. It was a boardroom. Daniel stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. What are you doing? Presenting facts. You're undermining me. I'm protecting the company. His eyes flashed. You're humiliating me. I held his gaze. No. I'm refusing to be silent. The silence stretched heavy. Finally, Chloe's father spoke. Daniel, he said carefully, ambition is admirable. But discipline sustains growth. Chloe's mother nodded gently. Perhaps expansion should wait until cash reserves stabilize. Daniel looked like someone had slapped him without touching him. I gathered my folder. If you'd like full financial reports, I said evenly, I can provide them. Chloe's father gave a slow nod. I would. Daniel didn't say another word while I walked toward the door. But I felt his stare burning into my back. He caught up with me outside. What the hell was that? That was transparency. You blindsided me in my own property. You blindsided me with a $250,000 withdrawal. That's not the same. It is. When my name is on the liability. His voice dropped. You think Chloe's parents are going to invest now? I don't know, I said honestly. But if they do, it won't be under illusion. He ran a hand through his hair. You've always resented me. The accusation landed unexpectedly. No, I said quietly. I protected you. From what? From yourself. He let out a bitter laugh. You're jealous. There it was. Not numbers. Not contracts. Emotion. You live in a small apartment. You play it safe. You don't take chances. And now that I'm building something bigger, you want to slow it down. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I don't want bigger. I want stable. You're afraid of risk. I'm afraid of collapse. He shook his head. You don't understand vision. And you don't understand consequence. We stood there in the driveway, the lake glinting peacefully behind him like none of this mattered. You embarrassed me, he said again. No, I replied softly. I exposed reality. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said the thing that changed everything. If you don't believe in me, sell your shares. The words hung in the air between us. He expected me to hesitate. To retreat. To apologize. Instead, I nodded once. Okay. His confidence faltered. What? Send me a valuation. You're serious? Yes. For the first time all afternoon, he looked unsure. You'd walk away? I'd walk away before I drown. Silence again. He stepped back slowly. You won't find a better opportunity. Maybe not, I said calmly. But I'll find peace. I got into my car before he could respond. As I drove away from Hillcrest, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. For 2 years, I had been the quiet partner. The supportive sister. The financial backbone no one noticed. But Sunday changed something fundamental. Daniel thought I was threatening to leave. He didn't realize I was preparing for something else entirely. If he sent that valuation, I wouldn't just review it. I would dissect it. And if he tried to lowball me, I wouldn't fight emotionally. I would fight legally. Because this was no longer about sibling rivalry. It was about ownership. And for the first time, Daniel had invited me to play on equal ground. He just didn't understand how prepared I already was. Daniel sent the valuation 3 days later. No greeting. No context. Just a PDF attachment at 11:47 p.m. I didn't open it that night. Instead, I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and let the silence settle. If I rushed into it emotionally, he would win. Daniel always counted on reaction. The next morning at 6:15 a.m., before work, I opened the file. Riverstone Holdings, Internal Equity Assessment. He valued the company at $1.2 million. My buyout at 50% ownership? $400,000. I read it twice. Then a third time. The math didn't match. If the company was worth $1.2 million, half would be $600,000. He'd applied liquidity risk discounts, market volatility buffers, and something labeled operational leadership premium. Operational leadership premium. He'd assigned himself added value. And discounted me. I didn't feel angry. I felt focused. I opened my own spreadsheets and began rebuilding valuation from scratch. Assets at current market projections. Liabilities at actual payoff amounts. Pending contractor disputes. Carrying costs. Realistic sales scenarios, not optimistic. After 3 hours of recalculating, my number was clear. Riverstone's fair valuation, $1.64 million. My half, $820,000. Daniel's offer wasn't just low. It was manipulative. He called that afternoon. Did you see it? Yes. It's fair. It's discounted. It reflects risk. It reflects your narrative. A pause. What's that supposed to mean? You're pricing me like a passive investor. You are. No, I said evenly. I'm a co-founder. You don't source deals. I structure financing. You don't manage contractors. I prevent bankruptcy. Silence. Then his voice sharpened. You're overvaluing paper projections. I'm using current comps and verified equity. You're ignoring market softness. I'm accounting for it. He exhaled heavily. Emily, I'm trying to be reasonable. Reasonable would be full transparency. You're asking for 800 grand? That's insane. I'm asking for fair. You'll sink the company. No, I corrected. You will if you can't sustain a buyout. That landed. He didn't respond immediately. Where are you getting that number? He asked finally. Independent analysis. You hired someone? Not yet. The word lingered between us. Not yet. You're threatening legal? I'm protecting myself. You'd take your own brother to court? If necessary. The hurt in his voice almost made me soften. Almost. You've changed, he said quietly. No, I replied. I've stopped shrinking. He hung up. That evening, I scheduled a consultation. Not with a friend. Not with a family contact. With a business litigation attorney downtown. Ms. Harper was precise, calm, mid-40s, with the kind of steady presence that made you feel both exposed and protected at the same time. I laid everything out. Operating agreement. Capital contributions. Distribution history. Unilateral decisions. His valuation. She read in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Then she looked up. You have leverage. I don't want war. You already have conflict. I want fairness. Then document everything, she said simply. And stop communicating verbally. Her words landed clean. If he refuses fair valuation, she continued, you can petition for formal appraisal or allege breach of fiduciary duty. Hearing it stated so plainly shifted something inside me. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was structural. What would you do? I asked. She didn't hesitate. I'd send a countervaluation with notice of formal review. And if he escalates? Then he proves your point. I left her office with clarity, not fear. Mom called that weekend. I heard you're involving lawyers. Daniel moved fast. I'm consulting, I said calmly. You're tearing this family apart. I didn't move $250,000 without agreement. You're being stubborn. I'm being contractual. She sighed sharply. Daniel is under pressure. Chloe's family is questioning him. Investors are hesitating. Now you're adding legal threats? I'm responding to financial exposure. You don't need that money. The words hit harder than I expected. I don't? You're single. You live modestly. Daniel has a future family to think about. There it was again. Minimize her. Sacrifice quietly. He also has a business partner, I said softly. You've always been practical. Why can't you just negotiate privately? I tried. You're humiliating him. I'm holding him accountable. She went quiet. Then, softer, you'll regret this when he stops speaking to you. Maybe. But I'd regret surrendering more. Monday morning, I emailed Daniel formally. Attached, independent valuation summary. Requested, joint third-party appraisal. Deadline, 10 business days. Tone, professional. Neutral. Unemotional. He responded within 15 minutes. This is hostile. No. It was documented. He showed up at my apartment that night again. Angrier this time. You blindsided me again. It was written. You went to an attorney. I sought advice. You're escalating. I'm formalizing. He stepped closer. Do you know what this looks like? Yes. Like you're trying to push me out. No. Like I'm refusing to be pushed. You're going to scare off lenders. Then stabilize the books. You don't understand pressure. I understand numbers. He paced. If I pay you 800 grand, I have to refinance 2 properties. Then maybe expansion wasn't sustainable. You're killing momentum. I'm exposing fragility. He stopped pacing and stared at me. You'd rather see me fail than compromise. That accusation almost broke through. But I stayed steady. I'd rather see you disciplined than reckless. His voice dropped lower. If this goes public, if investors hear we're fighting, it won't, I interrupted. Unless you refuse appraisal. Silence again. He realized something then. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't reacting. I was prepared. You've been planning this, he said slowly. I've been calculating risk. You never believed in me. I believed in structure. He shook his head, almost in disbelief. You're not the supportive sister anymore. No, I agreed quietly. I'm the equal partner. That word sat between us heavier than anything else we'd said. Equal. For the first time, Daniel looked unsure, not angry. Cornered. If I agree to third-party valuation, he said carefully, and it comes lower than your number? I accept it. And if it comes higher? You pay it. His jaw tightened. You're gambling. No, I said calmly. You are. He stared at me another long second. Then he said something I didn't expect. If I buy you out, we're done. Not business. Family. I swallowed, but didn't look away. If that's the cost of fairness, I said softly, then that's your decision. He left without another word. Later that night, I stood by my apartment window, looking at the city lights. For years, I had believed loyalty meant silence. That supporting someone meant stepping back. That being the practical one meant absorbing risk quietly. But something fundamental had shifted. Daniel thought this was about money. It wasn't. It was about precedent. If I accepted being discounted now, I'd be discounted forever. If I walked away cheap, I'd confirm his narrative. And if I stayed without boundaries, I'd drown in someone else's ambition. My phone buzzed just before midnight. A text from Daniel. Fine. Third-party appraisal. I'll send options tomorrow. I read it twice. Not victory. Not defeat. Progress. For the first time since Hillcrest, I exhaled fully. The fight wasn't over. But it wasn't emotional anymore. It was official. And if the appraisal came back higher than he expected, Daniel wouldn't just be refinancing properties. He'd be confronting something he'd avoided his entire life. Consequences. The appraisal report arrived on a Wednesday morning. Subject line, Riverstone Holdings, Independent Valuation. I didn't open it immediately. Not because I was afraid of the number. Because I knew whatever it said would close one chapter of my life and open another. At 8:12 a.m., sitting at my desk before anyone else arrived at the office, I clicked. I scanned past methodology. Comparable sales. Debt adjustments. Projected carry costs. Then I saw it. Fair market value, $178 million. My 50% equity, $890,000. I leaned back in my chair slowly. Higher than my estimate. Almost $500,000 more than Daniel's offer. The numbers didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat. They simply existed. Objective. Clean. Final. Daniel called 20 minutes later. His voice was flat. You saw it. Yes. Silence lingered. They overvalued future comps, he said automatically. They used conservative appreciation. They didn't factor market cooling. They adjusted for it. Another silence. Then I can't pay $890 in cash. I know. If I refinance Maple Ridge and Cedar, I can pull $600. That's not my problem. You want installments? Secured installments. He exhaled slowly. You really prepared for this? Yes. Did you ever plan on staying? The question surprised me. I planned on stability, I said. And when you didn't get it? I planned an exit. He didn't argue. For the first time in weeks, he sounded tired. Not defensive. Not proud. Just tired. Come to Hillcrest, he said. Tonight. The house looked different without an audience. No candles. No music. Just late afternoon light spilling across unfinished trim work. Daniel stood in the kitchen again, but this time there was no performance energy. Just paperwork spread across the island. Refinance estimates. Loan restructuring drafts. A payment schedule proposal. He slid a document toward me. $600 at closing. $290 over 18 months. Secured against Willow Court. I reviewed the terms carefully. Collateral was solid. Interest reasonable. Default clause clear. It was structured. Disciplined. You spoke to an advisor, I said. Yes. Good. He leaned back against the counter. I built this thinking bigger meant better. Bigger without foundation collapses. I know that now. The admission hung quietly between us. I wasn't trying to cut you out, he added. You were trying to outrun limits. He nodded faintly. And you were always the limit. No, I corrected gently. I was the guardrail. That landed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked something that mattered more than money. When did you stop trusting me? I thought about that. Not when you took the money, I said honestly. When you assumed I'd stay silent. He absorbed that. I didn't see you as equal. I know. I do now. It wasn't dramatic. No apology speech. No emotional embrace. Just a simple recognition. Equal. We signed the agreement at the island where he'd once presented expansion fantasies. The same counter. Different energy. When the final page was signed, something inside me shifted, not relief, not triumph. Completion. Closing happened 3 weeks later. $600,000 wired into my account. I stared at the notification for a full minute. It wasn't just money. It was validation. Of risk taken. Of boundaries drawn. Of silence finally broken. Mom called that evening. I heard it's finalized. Yes. Are you happy? I considered the word. I'm settled. She paused. Your brother says you handled it professionally. I did. Another pause. I may not have understood before, she admitted quietly. But I see now you were protecting yourself. And the company. Yes. It wasn't a full apology. But it was acknowledgement. I'd take it. 18 months passed. Daniel made every installment on time. No missed payments. No renegotiations. Riverstone didn't collapse. It stabilized. Scaled slower. More carefully. I heard through mutual contacts that Chloe's father eventually invested, but under stricter governance terms. Structured oversight. Monthly reporting. External audits. Daniel learned discipline the expensive way. I used my payout differently. No flashy house. No dramatic pivot. I launched a financial advisory firm specializing in small real estate partnerships. Helping quiet partners protect themselves. Helping founders structure growth without implosion. The irony wasn't lost on me. Everything I'd tried to teach Daniel, now I built a business around it. One evening, almost 2 years after Hillcrest, Daniel and I met for coffee. Neutral ground. No contracts between us anymore. Just siblings. You look different, he said. How? Confident. I smiled slightly. I always was. He nodded. I just didn't see it. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Do you regret leaving? He asked. No, do you regret fighting? I thought about the sleepless nights. The tension. The risk. No, I said finally. I regret waiting so long. He looked down at his cup. You forced me to grow up. I forced you to share responsibility. He laughed lightly. Still correcting me. Still precise. But there was no edge now. Just clarity. Sometimes people assume this story is about winning. About a sister outsmarting a reckless brother. About money. It isn't. It's about value. Not the market kind. The internal kind. For years, I believed being supportive meant being smaller. That loyalty meant silence. That love meant absorbing imbalance. It doesn't. Love without boundaries becomes resentment. Partnership without equality becomes exploitation. And ambition without structure becomes collapse. Daniel thought I was challenging his vision. I was protecting its survival. He thought I was attacking him. I was defending myself. And in the end, neither of us lost. We just stopped pretending inequality was harmless. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: being the quiet one doesn't mean you're weak. Being the cautious one doesn't mean you lack courage. And being underestimated? That's not a flaw. It's leverage. Because the moment you stop shrinking, the room adjusts. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or pressured to stay small, share your thoughts below. And if you believe in building strength quietly until the moment it matters most, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Still Waters Payback. Sometimes the calmest voice in the room is the one that changes everything.